Welcome guys to another episode of Motivational Monday, where each one teach one. Myself, Philia, and we have Dr. Andy on the live this afternoon. So before we start, I'd like to open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I want you to thank us. Thank you, dear Lord Jesus, for another day, another wonderful, wonderful day in the land of the living. Help us, dear Lord, to do your will, dear Lord. Guide our path, protect and guide our families, dear Lord Jesus. Oh Lord, you know all things, things seen and unseen. And Father, all we asking is for guidance and protection. In no other name but in Jesus' name we pray. Amen and
Amen.
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 Okay. So if you're celebrating a birthday today, we want to say happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
And if you had a birthday past weekend gone, we want to say happy belated birthday for
Yes.
all those what we in Virgo Libra season now. And I just want to say happy birthday tomorrow will be
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Joseph's birthday. You know,
Yeah.
the number one average listener every
Uh-huh.
day. Coming in from location, I'm in LA. So it's a bit of a time difference. It's 5:01
Mm-hmm.
here. So just love in the house always. So
Always.
I'm gonna do word of the week this
Mm-hmm.
week, and it's ethos. Am I
Mm-hmm.
pronouncing it right?
That's correct. Ethos comes from
Okay.
the word ethics.
Yes. It's the guiding belief of a person, group, etc.
All right. So ethos. Very good. So that's where the word ethical can come from, ethos. So that's the principles that guide people. Thought awesome. Thank you. So today we're going to switch places and I'm going to do the health tips. And what we're going to talk about today is 30 days of wellness.
Okay.
So, many people want to form new habits that will make them healthier and bring peace. However, that can feel daunting and intimidating. So, if you're looking for small ways to make a big impact on your daily health and wellness, the list can help you in 30 days worth of small changes that, if we implement them regularly, it can lead us to be happier, healthier, and live longer lives. So these small changes don't require a lot of money, a lot of time, or a lot of skill. But after we implement one of them, we'll want to do more because the results are often very, very significant. So,
Right.
first and foremost, we're going to try a green smoothie. Now, if you're a regular smoothie drinker, throw in a handful of leafy greens to ramp up the nutritional value of your smoothie. You like smoothies?
Yes, I love smoothies. Actually, I had some celery and apple earlier on that Auntie Carol made.
Nice. Okay. So that is definitely something I'm going to add to it. I'm going to get the leafy greens to add to my strawberry banana smoothie.
Right.
So, number two, stop and breathe. So, of course, breathing is natural, but sometimes we don't stop and make a concerted effort to really focus on our breathing. So, a
Right.
quick session of deep breathing can help us feel more relaxed and less stressed. And it only takes a moment, but can relax our body for hours. Number three, eat out less. So when you cook at home, you know what's already in your food. It's not
Yes.
processed or less processed than restaurant food that has added sodium and fats and more calories. So even a simple salad, home cooking is the best. Number four, see your physician for a yearly checkup. I know we talked about it in the last
Yes.
podcast, is to see your doctor. It can keep an eye on what's going on with your body year after year. Make sure you schedule your yearly checkups and commit to them. Number five, try a new healthy food. So if you've been looking for an excuse to try that kumquat or asparagus, or
Yes.
quinoa, just do it. You never know when you'll find a new favorite healthy snack. Number six, do some yoga. Yoga is relaxing. It's good for your physical self. Is if you're a beginner, there are definitely a lot of new places that you can find to try yoga. Number seven, drink more water. You can't get enough of that.
Correct.
Our bodies are made of 70% of water. Even a glass more a day will help increase our water intake and it may boost our energy levels. So you don't necessarily need energy drinks, you need water to help you obtain weight, fitness goals, and improve the quality of your skin. Awesome. Now, number eight, take a break from social media. Stay
Yes.
off for a full day. Studies have shown that social media can lead to bad mood, low self esteem, and anxiety. So, a break can be quite refreshing. That's really interesting.
Yes.
That you think that it actually leads into a bad mood because you saw something that made you feel worse about yourself.
I know.
That's pretty interesting. Okay. Number nine, pamper your feet. So I know we had that on a couple of podcasts ago. Like,
Yes.
you got to take care of your feet. We walk on them, we use them, we need them to stand. So, our feet do a lot of work. They need some love too. So come on, a little extra TLC on the feet will serve us good. If you haven't gotten a pedicure, go and do that. If you are not into pedicures, at least soak your feet with some Epsom salt or baking soda. It will relieve a lot of tension, aches, and make your feet smell really good.
Yes.
um, Number 10, lower your sugar intake. So I know that with Treading Faith, we're getting ready to embark on a sugar fast, a
Right.
sugar-free fast. So lowering your sugar intake is definitely going to help because sugary foods age your skin, mess with your digestion, and can make your mood very tired. So eat a banana, some watermelon, some frozen grapes instead. That will help. Number 11, write down your goals. Writing down your goals make them more tangible and realistic. So you know that when you write your goals, you have more of a chance of manifesting them.
Right.
These are really good tips. Okay. We have number 12, take a walk. Walking is great, a great form of exercise. You don't need to run. You just need to get outside and it's good for you, it's good for your mood, it's good for your health. Do it with a
And we
friend.
have Walktober coming up.
Well,
In the
October
month
is
of
coming
October.
up.
Yes. Count your steps.
Yes, excellent. And that's awesome. So, in fact, that's how we continued our friendship. We went walking. So,
Yes.
it's really great to bring a family or friend and you can have extra health and quality time. 13, declutter. You might think you need the things you have, but you really don't. Of course, COVID taught us that. We don't need all that stuff. So, reducing your clutter lowers stress and makes life simple. Organize one spot at a time so it's not overwhelming. Number 14, try a new recipe. You may be in a rut with food and get bored. So you want to add some more flavor, some more vegetables, and something different that will spice up your life in your eating habits. Number 15, lift some weights. Bring out those dusty dumbbells that you probably left in your closet for some time
Yes.
and lift for 15 minutes. That's all we're asking for. You don't have to do a full workout, but it is better than nothing. It's one of the best types of exercise to improve your body, your composition, and even a couple of canned veggies will do. Oh, so using canned vegetables if you don't have weights is
Yes.
some form of weight. That's really interesting. I like that. Number
Yes.
16, do something you love. This can be as small as reading a chapter in a book, practicing a hobby, eating the foods that you adore, cooking, anything that makes you feel good, gives you feel good hormones. Number 17, eat one dark leafy green vegetable per day. So just try your best. Broccoli, spinach, add it to your pasta, add some kale to your soup. It really, really, really helps protect us from disease and promotes mental wellness. 18, get your rest. Americans are notorious for not getting enough sleep or rest. Find out about a sweet sleep a sleep sweet spot, okay, and aim for it. Have a bedtime, wake up and get your routine on. Number 19, plan an outing. It could be a visit to a local brewery, time with friends, or vacation. Making future exciting plans gives you something to anticipate and makes your dreary days more palatable. Number 20, ditch the salt. Use fresh
Right.
herbs and pepper to season your food instead of dumping a whole bunch of salt. It can contribute to high blood pressure and can lead to a number of other physical issues. Number 21, do some cardio. Get your heart pumping for 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. It will help you lose weight, regulate your blood pressure, and lower the risk of disease. 22, be kind to yourself. You are your own worst critic. Negative self-talk can impact you physically and mentally. So be as kind to yourself as you would be kind to another person. I love that. That's actually my favorite
Yes.
so far. Number 23, add a superfood to your diet. So, superfoods offer a high level of nutrition and are immediate upgrade to our diet. So, we need to figure out what those superfoods are. Usually, they're berries, quinoa.
Yes.
There's several things that add antioxidants to us.
And
So, we have
say,
a couple
yeah.
more and we're good. Number 24, stretch at your desk. So, there's no excuse not to do something. Just
Right.
stand up every hour. Stretch your body for 2 minutes. It's good. It gets your blood flowing. Stand up straight. Check your posture during the stretch. That helps. 25, take the stairs. Using the stairs instead of the elevator is a great way to boost your fitness and doesn't feel like a huge commitment. And the little changes does make a great impact.
Right.
26, pump up your breakfast. Try a bowl of whole grain oatmeal. Put some berries, add some plain yogurt. I know you mentioned that you do overnight oats. So
Yes.
something different is
With
excellent
berries,
with
I
berries.
berries in it, cherries.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So just start the day with a healthy kick. Number 27, take your vitamins. B vitamins can help reduce some type of cancer and heart disease, and they are found in many foods, including leafy greens, bananas, avocados, and eggs. 28, share compliments. Compliments benefit the giver and the receiver. So making others happy boosts your own happiness and leads to more wellness. 29, drink green tea. It improves mental alertness, promotes weight loss, and has been studied for possible impact on reducing heart disease and cancer. And last but not least, number 30, switch up your evening routine. Wind down before bed by taking a bath, reading a book. Stay off the screens. Stay stimulated with your brain and make healthy sleep more difficult to achieve. So that means turning off blue lights,
Yeah.
all the little lights that we like, LEDs, that affects your sleep pattern. You really have to try to turn them off so your body can get the rest that it needs. And that's your health tip for the week, everyone. I hope out of the 30, all 30 is what you're going to do. But if not, choose a couple and stick to your plan. And
Thank you,
that's it.
Philia.
Thank you. That was fun.
So I just want to give you 10 reasons why
Mhm.
you need to go out there and vote. One, voting is the foundation of our democracy. So we need to go out there. It works when it works for us. So go out there. Number two, we won't see real change unless we go out there and cast your ballot. Number three, in Delaware, voting is easier than ever. Number four, if you don't use it, you can lose it. If you do not go out there and vote, then you can't just sit around and talk about the government because it didn't do something about it, right? Number five, free stickers. Who doesn't love free stickers? We realize that if you vote by mail, you probably won't be getting it. I voted sticker is always good to say when you vote and you did your civic right. Bragging rights. When you vote, you are taking part in something much bigger than any one person. Your vote matters, your voice matter, and when you cast your ballot, you earn the best kind of bragging rights. You get to let everyone know you help fight for your country by keeping the foundation of democracy strong. Number seven, because history doesn't have to repeat itself. Generations before us fought hard to protect and expand the rights to vote. Those fights shouldn't have to be repeated. Using our vote is essential to protecting the voting right. Victories we have already won, and to expanding those victories to ensure that every person who should be able to vote in America be able to vote. Eight, to have a say in how your money is being spent. Is your tax money going towards the things that matter most to you and your community? Your vote is vital to electing officials who are committed to spending our hard earned money on things that will help the community thrive. Nine, because those who can't vote need to stand up for them too. 10, America is worth fighting for, and your vote is one of the best fighting tools you have. Even in our darkest moments, America is worth fighting for. The strongest systematic fight that we have in our vote. We can come together to use the vote to elect candidates who care about the best of this country like we do. We can use our vote, our fight to build on foundation of democracy and create the America that we can all live in as immigrant. I'm talking as an immigrant to for all those immigrants out there who never voted before, please go out there and cast your vote. I want to say thank you again for all our listeners that listening tonight. So, Dr.
Thank you.
Andy, we are going to talk tonight a bit about grief, loss, and healing. Take it away, Dr. Andy. We're not hearing you.
You
Good.
hearing me now?
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you so
So
much.
that we can. I like your philosophy. Each one teach one.
Yes.
So when you text me, I was like, what should I touch on? I always have a bunch of topics, but I chose grief and loss for what's going on right now in the country. Yesterday, I lost one of my clients
Oh, sorry about that.
from addiction. So I said to honor him, I'm going to talk about grief and loss. It's hard when somebody you know. So I get personal with my clients, so they become like family. So I felt
Right.
like I lost a family member.
Right.
I've known him for like 7 years, so I just wanted to honor him by talking about this topic. Now, when we talk about, so as you would see in my label, it has thanatologist.
Yes.
So that's it's a word for the profession.
So
Thana
technologists,
Thanatologist.
yes.
That's what I am. It's like you say a psychiatrist or this. I'm a thanatologist, which means I deal with death studies. My PhD was based on um, the effects of grief and loss on substance abuse disorders. Right.
Right.
Um, so I just wanted to set the platform so before we go forward, and I would like this to be interactive because I'm sure some of your listeners may have some questions, maybe for themselves or for others. Um, when we talk about grief, you know, it's not just simply death and dying.
Hmm.
Let's set that platform.
Right.
It's about many other things. Loss of a relationship, loss of a job, loss of country, um, finance, and all of these other things that we lose. So I just wanted to make that clear to your audience that when we say grief and loss, we're not just talking about death and dying because that's what it's normally associated with,
Right.
but it's more than that. So, having said that, tonight we are talking specifically about death and dying.
Right.
But I just wanted to set the platform that when people speak of grief or loss, it's not always about death and dying. But tonight we choose to talk about death and dying.
So let me
Um,
ask you, Andy,
Go ahead.
to interrupt you.
Sure, not an
You know,
interruption.
seeing that you had this client for 7 years, how is your mental? How do you deal with, let's say, how this person passed away? How that affect you?
Well, it's like to me it's like a family member who died. So I'm gonna mourn, I'm gonna grieve, I'm gonna go through I'm gonna use the tools that I give other clients.
Right.
I will share, I will talk about the deceased as much as I can. I will honor him. It's more about getting people together who you can share your grief with. That's how I'm dealing with it. So I've lost lots of clients for the last 20 something years. Some hit home more than others. One of the things that with him that I feel more at peace with is every time we met, I shared the gospel with him. Every time we met, I would say, "Hey, what are you gonna do? Where your soul is gonna go if you were to die tomorrow?" I asked him that for years.
Right.
So we would talk, we would share. I believe he's in the arms of Jesus. Despite if it was an overdose, we're not sure what it is as yet, but I just believe sincerely that he's in the arms of Jesus, I always share the gospel with him. As a matter of fact, I share the gospel with most of my clients, for those who believe, as much as possible, because that's a serious question. Nobody's guaranteed to be here tomorrow. So what do you do with the time that you have? I just finished up a Bible study with some people who struggle with addiction.
Yes.
And one of the things I was asking them is, are you a light in your environment?
Hmm.
Does your character reflect God? Does
Wow.
your does your how the what would, if I was to ask your coworkers about you, what would they say?
Mm.
So that was an interesting topic. Um, so we deal with it. When I say we are in the profession, we know that it's jails, institutions, or death. That's the mantra when you're dealing with addiction. Either you go to jail, and it comes in no specific order. So it's something that we deal with. I'm going to make sure that I get more information. He's local, so I'm going to, as things are slowly coming through, find out, funeral arrangements and all that stuff to see how I can be a part of it to honor it. That's how we do it. We're used to it. It's not a good feeling, but it's part of the game. That's what I signed up for.
I have a question for you.
Hmm.
Um, a person who is ill and
A person who
maybe
is what?
ill,
Uh
have
huh.
an illness, and maybe dying, but don't know how to express themselves.
Uh
But
huh.
the time is coming soon.
Uh huh.
How do you go about, um, comforting them?
Well, one of the things, so more or less from what you're saying, this person is like has a terminal illness.
Yes,
They are probably in hospice, but they know that their time is short.
yes,
Well, as a matter of fact, I dealt with a client yesterday on my day off. So, that how you deal with this is you honor them. It's about spending these last moments. So hospice is based on people dying with dignity, dying with they're dying, knowing that they're dying, but it's not like, okay, you're dying and that's it.
right,
So one of the things is you honor them, you show them as much appreciation as they can. You give them that opportunity to talk about whatever they choose. Oftentimes they would like to talk about, reflect on the days back in the day.
right,
So you give them that platform to talk, and you do things that are meaningful to them at this point in time. You let them know how much you love them. You cook for them, their favorite meal, and you just open up that window of opportunity for them to just express how they feel. Now, based on the individual person, if it's somebody that you were not a big part of their life then, and you're a part now, you let them reflect on your relationship with you, and when they are in that stage, they want to talk about anything and everything. So you just give them the platform to talk. One of the things you have to learn to do, it's not about you, so you need to zip it as much as possible, and you work with them in a way that let's say we're talking and everything goes flat, those moments of silence, you just ask a question to keep the dialogue going, let
right.
them keep talking, because oftentimes I've seen a lot of
Sometimes they
people.
don't want to talk.
Right. I've seen a lot of people do some disservice by they start talking about the last time this happened, and
Right,
it's not about you. You give them that platform and that opportunity to express themselves however they do. Sometimes you may have to coerce them into talking, or
right.
sometimes they might be just a natural talker.
Sometimes they're not a natural talk at all.
Okay, so with that, you just let them know that I'm here for you, and maybe I don't know, flowers or some discussion pertaining to them, with even though they're not talking, but they can relive it. Maybe they have a favorite movie that you guys used to watch together. Hey,
Right,
remember we used to watch XYZ? You want to
right.
watch it? You do all those things, giving them the option to make choices for them and not you. So it's not, keep in mind, it's not about me, it's about the person. That's
Okay,
the first line of defense that we have to protect ourselves from, and the loved ones. It's not about me, it's about you. How could I help you today? How are you feeling today? Is it what do you want to eat today? You
Right.
know, you want us to take a walk outside today if you could walk, or anything along that line.
Right. Okay, good.
Okay. So as I said, today we're speaking specifically about um, death and dying. So over the years, so this has now become part of the DSM 4 5.
Yeah.
This is our Bible. So it has been recently added to the DSM 5 as prolonged grief disorder, right? And
Yeah.
there are different types of grief when it comes to death and dying. Actually, there are 16.
Mm.
But we're going to only talk about 9 tonight. But
Okay.
I'll talk about the just mention the 16. So which means something that we can do maybe in another program, another
Okay.
episode.
Part two.
Yes.
Okay.
So grief was not acknowledged until Dr. Kubler-Ross, God bless her soul, she died like 3 years ago. You might have heard of the 7 stages of grief, of the 5 stages of grief. You know, you hear people rattle them off because, they've heard about it. But
You want to just repeat the 5 stages so I can type it there for them?
I will repeat 7, but
Seven.
I'll tell you the principal 5.
Okay.
So this was developed. She interviewed people who were dying in hospice,
Yes.
and she wanted them to die with dignity. So she did a lot of interviews. Based on those interviews, she developed what we call the 5 stages of grief.
Yes.
So I want people to understand that clearly, and it crept into the grief literature, and now it has become a stable part of grief and loss. But this was principally developed based on people who were dying, who were in hospice. They had not died as yet, but she was interviewing them, and that's how that came into the literature. So the 5 initial stages were denial, trying to avoid the trying to avoid the inevitable, wanting to avoid thoughts or feelings about the loss. Then there's anger, frustration, and outpouring of bottled up emotions. You're angry at yourself, angry about other things. Bargaining is looking for a way out. If only I had that, you start making battles with yourself and others. You're bargaining. Um, number 5 is number 4, that would be depression, where you get into a depressed state. You're not depressed, but you're getting signs of depression. And the last one is that's where we try to get you to, which is called acceptance, where you accept this is it. It is what it is. Finding ways to keep going, accepting the fact that a new reality cannot be changed. Now, these are the two new ones that they added recently, which now makes it 7 stages of grief. Is shock. The initial shock at hearing the bad news can feel like disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And then they added testing, seeking realistic situations, and finding ways to cope.
So
So
the
those,
last one is testing.
yes,
Okay.
all right. So they've added those into it, and as I say, it's in the DSM now for treatment.
So let me go over denial, one, two, anger, three,
Mhm.
bargaining, four, depression, five, acceptance, six, what is six?
6 is shock,
Six is shock,
and 7
seven is
is
testing.
testing.
Okay, good. All right, got it.
Okay. Um, So, having said that, we the out of the 16, let's see if I could get that. I'll read out this. Let's see. I'll read out the 16, but the
Okay.
one we're going to focus on is complicated grief, which is the norm within society. That's the normal one and there are certain signs and certain criteria to be met. So, if for adults, it's like 1 year or more, you're still mourning, you're isolating, you're not talking to no one, you're not picking up the mail, you seem to be sort of depressed after 1 year, that person may need to see a specialist. For kids, it's 6 months. After 6 months, consistent, the grieving, mourning, not eating, not doing a bunch of stuff, that's the ones that's when hey, they need some type of treatment.
Okay.
So so there are three reactions to grief before I go into the 16.
Okay.
So there's the physical reaction to grief. So stuff like an actual tightness in your chest, feeling weak, lack of energy, nausea, heart palpitations, restlessness, tearfulness, and a bunch of others when it comes to the physical reactions. Then
So,
there's go ahead.
so you say there's three reaction, right?
There's the physical, the behavioral, and the emotional.
Okay, good.
So that category I just read out was the physical. Now the behavioral reactions to grief are forgetfulness, confusion, dreaming of the person you've lost, or absent-mindedness. That's the behavioral. And the emotional is anger, shock, denial, numbness, loneliness, relief, apathy, irritability, and misplaced anger. They get angry at the wrong people. And there's also social reactions. For example, being unusually dependent on other persons,
Mm-hmm.
withdrawing from friends, relationship difficulties, avoiding family, um, avoiding colleagues, avoiding friends, increased substance abuse, which piques my interest,
Mm-hmm.
and neglecting yourself, but caring for others. So lack of self care. You
So
know,
we have physical, behavioral, and the last one was
we have physical, behavioral, emotional, and
emotional.
social.
Okay, and
And if
social.
anyone has any questions during that time, I'm ready to take it.
Okay,
So
cool.
so the first category. So I said there's 16. I'm gonna just go over them briefly, but focus on complicated grief. Um, First one is normal grief. It's normal. People die, people die, people die. Right?
Right,
That's normal. Um, so that's self-explanatory.
right.
Then there is anticipatory grief. That's like hospice. You know they were going to die. It doesn't ease the pain, but it makes you be prepped for when that person eventually dies. So it kind of like softens the blow in most cases,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it just doesn't, right? But it actually um, is more effective. Like, okay, you get the call XYZ died. You were expecting it. Doesn't make ease the pain, but at least it didn't shock you to make you
Right.
numb or anything.
Okay.
Then there's complicated grief, which we're going to talk about once in a few. It occurs when grieving process does not move all the way through the steps of grief. Those stages that I just mentioned, it's complicated. A lot
Yeah.
of stuff is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's chronic grief. Um, uh, how should I explain? It's intense reaction to the loss, and your emotions will last for a very long time and cause you to have incredible distress.
Mm.
Um, it intensify. You have difficulty making um, progress with regards to, you know, although there's no specific time to grieve, like how long does it take? But it's chronic. It's just consistent, persistent. All right.
Yes.
Then we have the delayed grief. It can happen if you're experiencing stark feelings of sorrow and longing, even if the loved ones that occurred a very long time ago. So you didn't fully grieve. You had the grief was delayed. I have a client right now.
Right.
Um, she she never mourned the loss of, I think, her husband shot himself in front of herself and the kid, and,
Wow.
and she never mourned it. So now she started using substances, of course, as a
Right.
coping skill, and now I'm working with her.
Okay.
There's distorted grief, which can be defined as intense or extreme reaction to a loss. There typically will be a noticeable change in behavior overall and self-destructive behavior. They're self-destructive. so it's distorted. Anger and lashing out towards others is very prevalent. Um, and yeah, just lashing out at others. That's when it's distorted. It's all over the place.
Right.
It's not. It's just as the word said, distorted.
Right.
Then there's cumulative grief. That's where you have one after the other, and it piles up. Um, so you experience another loss despite the one that you're experiencing. So, for example, in
Right.
COVID, I know in Trinidad there was a East Indian family. They lost somebody this week. They lost somebody the next week, and they
Yes.
lost somebody.
Pile
So
up.
yeah. So in COVID, which I COVID, how should I say this? COVID opened a window for people now to focus on grief. People who were not thinking about grief,
Right.
COVID made they open their eyes.
Okay.
I have another client again. She lost her healthy dad during COVID,
Mm.
and she again resumed to drugs. Right,
Right.
so we have a lot of cumulative grief right now within the not just U.S. in the world when it came to COVID.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean the more business for me, but it's not like yeah, but it's like whoa. So sometimes I have to like I say no, I can't. I'm full. I can't take no one else because I want to give everyone that ample time and do the research. So like when we meet and we talk, that initial stage, you know, I don't want to get burnt out. But I have clients who have refused, and I will tell them refer them to someone else, because my caseload is like filled when it comes to this, and there's so many hours in the day, so I have to do self care for myself,
Right.
deal with all of this stuff. When you come out of I can tell you personally, when I come out of a session with grief, I am mentally exhausted,
Mm.
mentally dealing with my personal. Now remember, I have to separate my personal losses with their personal losses. So even while they're talking, I might reflect on my mother who died in the hospital, or something else. So it's an emotional drain for me at times. That's another reason why I don't take a bunch of clients. I can, but it's going to be a disservice because I have to debrief after I finish a session.
Right.
You know, there's exaggerated grief. Exaggerated, it includes more intense types of reaction than you'd probably see in any other type of grief. It's blown out of proportion. It's exaggerated. Your emotions and your actions become more noticeable and disruptive. That's the key sign. You might experience self-destructive behaviors, harming yourself, nightmares, thoughts of suicide, self-harm, of course, drugs and alcohol related.
Right.
Then there's secondary loss, which occurs when a loss affects several areas of your life. The end result can be that you actually experience a number of losses, all stemming from the original loss you experienced.
Right.
So let's say you're in a traffic accident, right?
Right.
One person died, some remained alive, and
Right.
then another person died, and. So all of these start mounting up.
Mm.
Then there's mass grief. That's where we cover it up. Um,
Mac or mask?
Mask, masked, like you have on a mask, you
Okay,
mask
mask.
it, you
Yeah.
hide it. A lot of people are doing right now based on what happened with COVID. They're masking it. How you doing? Okay, but inside they're burning up. And we see that most prevalent in people. There's a connection with substance abuse
Right.
and mass grief. People are just covering it up. Sometimes because they're not outgoing, they want to keep it to themselves, and there's some shame associated with it. Which comes to the next one: disenfranchised grief. This is sort of like tied into. So, for example, the Christian community is guilty of prolonging this type of disenfranchised grief. For example, so the LGBTQ community, they experience that quite a lot, and their suicide rate is very high.
Right.
That's because Christians, a lot of Christians would say, why are you grieving? You were living in sin.
Right.
Like, yo, hold up, bro. like, hold up, what are you saying? Whether your belief or not, it should not. So the nobody recognizes it, or they kind of like pushes it in their faces.
Right.
So the suicide rate in that community is very high.
Yeah.
Um, for or like miscarriage, that's a big deal. To some
Mhm,
people,
yeah.
it's nothing. But what about all the preparations that were made for that baby? So when I was working JetBlue, I have a guy who his wife had two miscarriages, and it was devastating.
Yes.
Finally, they ended having I think she's like 3 or 4 years old now. But boy, they made this preparation. They painted the room
Yeah.
blue and did all this stuff, and all this stuff bought, and miscarriage after miscarriage. So disenfranchised grief, we have to be very careful with that, right?
Right.
We are not condoning whatever we think, but at the same time, we are helping them to mourn the loss,
Right.
right? Then there's traumatic grief, which brings trauma with the grief. Is a common result of trying to process grief where there's trauma that comes from a horrifying, unexpected loss or death. It could result in impairment of your daily functioning in life. So trauma and grief goes kind of like hand in hand. So I am being certified as a EMDR, which is a special training where you can help people with trauma. And with my certification as a grief counselor, is going to actually augment and help more people once I get that certification.
Right.
Then we have collective grief, which is when a tragedy affects an entire community, COVID, right?
Right.
Or large groups. It's common during times of war and after major natural disasters, hurricanes and stuff. And I actually had a company, well, it's still there, but I don't do anything with it, where we work with survivors of hurricanes. So I work with FEMA. I'm
Right.
certified in all the areas of disaster management with FEMA based
Right.
on that company. Then we have inhibited grief, which is you're not showing any signs of outward forms of grief, but something is going on. They're concealing it, right?
Mm.
It typically happens to a long period and results are not being able to effectively move through the stages. So the goal is to move them through the stages to get to acceptance,
Right.
right? I'll tell you a short tool that I use, which I'm sure would benefit some of your listeners. Then there's abbreviated grief. It can occur when a person who passes away is replaced after a short time. So you find that normally in relationships, and it causes a lot of conflicts in families. My daddy died, and she remarried in 6 months.
Yeah.
Cheating on daddy while he was alive, right? Because it was short. The person
Right.
just moved on, and sometimes the deceased, if it's like hospice, will say, "Hey, do not um, when I die, you can move on with your life." So
Right.
sometimes the kids are not aware of that discussion, and they hate the parents because 6 months ago daddy died. Not even look, he still is, his body is still in the grave, worms are still eating it, and look, she's already married or remarried or in a relationship. So that's something that's very prevalent. And the last one is absent grief, which is you aren't showing any signs, typical signs of grief, perhaps as though you haven't experienced a loss. So you're not seeing no signs, but you are aware. And these are the people that you need to watch because they can be suicidal and very tricky. Um, so here's what I use. This is the mantra I give to most of my clients for those who are spiritually minded. Now, keep in mind, you're dealing with a population, some who don't believe in God, call themselves atheists, some who say they're agnostic, they're not sure, and then we have the believers. So one of the first things I would do to get out of the way if I have a new case or if I'm called to um, a house or something, because I work a lot with the schools.
Yeah.
One of the things I would ask initially would be, could you tell me something and I just need to know, where's your spirituality at? Or do you have any spirituality at all? I would get 80% of them saying, yes, I believe in God. I don't go to church as I should, and all that type of stuff. But
Right.
yes, I believe. For those who say I believe, here's something that I use. So my mom died when I was in the end stages of getting this certification. She was a nurse, a midwife in the San Fernando General Hospital.
Yeah.
She had water in her lungs. She went to the doctor, the hospital, and they gave her an appointment to come back and see the doctor. And during that period, that's where she died. So I was livid,
Right.
like because I worked when I was doing my undergrad, I worked at Memorial Hospital, and I know in the emergency room, anyone who came in with water on their lungs, you had to be hospitalized. You were not
Right.
going to be leaving, right? So I was like, I was upset. So for almost 16 years, I grieved my mom with
Right.
no with with a bunch of feelings. So I would lecture and I would be crying, boo hoo, boo hoo, always have tissue, and I'm struggling with it.
Right.
Then one day the Lord revealed this to me, and this is what I use, and it works. I said, my mom is dead. She's not coming back, but the next time we meet again will be forever.
Right.
That, so I can talk about my mom now without crying.
Right.
And I have a lot of clients who've used that method, and they would text me back or call me and say, "Hey, Dr. Andy, this stuff worked, man. I'm feeling much better. I'm dealing with it much better, and all of that good stuff." So that's a mantra that I use. I use it a lot for with people struggling with addiction.
Right.
All right. Any questions so far?
No people listening right now. I guess if it
Okay.
yeah.
So the one we're going to dive into is complicated grief, which is mostly what I wrote my dissertation on, complicated grief. It occurs when your grieving process does not move all the way through the steps of grief. It becomes complicated. It could be prolonged and much more intense, and it will typically have a significant impact on your ability to function. You might feel more depressed and have increased anxiety. Anxiety comes with grief and loss.
Yeah.
Um, with complicated grief, your reactions and behaviors will likely extend for a very long time, very long periods with little or no improvement. So it's very complicated, right?
Yes.
This is where you need intense therapy. So when I'm dealing with, I'll come back to that. I have an example to give you with grief and anxiety. So
Okay.
complicated grief typically requires help from a mental health professional like myself.
Hmm.
Someone experienced with complicated grief can be beneficial, as complicated grief is one of the more difficult types of grief. It's very important to understand that complicated grief will not resolve on its own. You must get treatment.
Must get help.
So, like 3 years ago, um, I had this client. I don't want to call her name,
Right.
but boy, I know treatment works. I know she's my model that treatments work. So here's what happened. Her husband died, and her kids said she's grieving.
Right.
Okay, so based on my relationship, a friend of mine from Trinidad, when they told her, she said, "I have the right person for you because I worked with her when her nephew committed suicide." That's the person in Trinidad. She told them, "I have the right person for you," and I get into contact with them, and I started working with her. In the first session I did, I listened to her talk. I'm like, I did my initial assessment, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like grief.
Mm-hmm.
We continued third, fourth, fifth session. I started to ask some. So there's a questionnaire, different types of questionnaires that you can use for grief.
Right.
When I looked at her responses, I'm like, this lady's not grieving. This lady is anxious.
Mm.
So we started talking about the anxiety, and guess what we discovered?
Uh-huh.
She was always anxious based on her relationship with her husband who died.
Oh.
But she never knew it because, again, she's not a professional. Most people
Right.
don't know, only when you come to the professionals. Then I said, so tell me, we started to talk about the relationship. He was controlling, he was a narcissistic,
Right.
but don't get it wrong. She loved him. She
Right.
loved him. That's the important part. But she was not grieving the loss. She was the anxiety was driving her. She couldn't
Right.
still when I first got her, she would be tapping her feet, all this stuff. So I gave her a bunch of tools. And once I'm doing grief counseling, I bring in part of my treatment is I bring a nutritionist. She
Okay.
comes in. I do not work. If so, I say there's another course. There's a nutritionist who comes in, make sure that you're healthy, you're eating healthy. And when my nutritionist came in, the doctors were giving her a bunch of pills that she didn't need.
Right.
And she started to follow the nutritionist. And you should see her now. She looks like 10 years younger. The kids were amazed and they were like, wow. And like, she's my role model when it comes to complicated grief, right? Anxiety was the deciding factor, but only a trained professional could deduce that based on, my years of experience and working together. So if any of your audience, I'm telling, if they're struggling with grief, you don't just grab a therapist. You grab somebody who is trained like myself, who can actually work it through. So the Psychology Today, that's a website that's
Yeah.
in the US. You can go there and you can scroll and you will find a therapist who is certified in grief. Don't get, because here's what happens. Some of the therapists are unethical. Ethics
Right.
is the big thing when it comes to our profession. That's a big, well, most all professions, but it's very big in ours. So a client will take you to get the money,
Right.
but they're
Exactly.
not trained. So they mess you up.
Yeah.
And now I have to come and clean up that mess and start
But
afresh.
Philip, you have any questions for Andy on cumulative grief?
Yes, hearing all of these different layers of grief makes you start to really think about how and why people grieve differently. People always look for this standard, oh, you're not crying a lot. Oh, you know, how come you seem so over it so quickly? Or why are you still crying after 25 years? And it just shows the one is it's so complex. Two, it could be anxiety, like for instance a previous client that you dealt with, or anxiety because of the relationship was so strenuous and maybe toxic. So even though you love the person, you're still dealing with that toxicity, that now
Yes.
there's a sense of relief, but yet still there's a sense of loss.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, and I get that. And I just think that it's just such an interesting topic. And once I saw, your name, phenologist, then I said, wait, I thought of Thanos in the comics. And I was like, oh, that's the character that deals with death. And so all of that stuff, the Greek, etymology behind it, it just makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much, Dr. Andy, for just being so versed and transparent about, you know, the things that you do and you offer, and you've offered other things to us on this site, and I mean on this podcast, and we didn't even know I didn't know to the extent. So I just feel really honored for you to be here and explain this. And I'm sure even for me, my
Yes.
father passed away on a plane coming from Sierra Leone, West Africa, to here.
Mm.
And it's like, to this day I have not cried, and not
Ah.
because my father and I were very, very close, but even this is bringing insight to why I probably didn't cry, because at that time it was just my mother. He had no life insurance. My sister had passed years before. We were only two children. I'm now the only child. My mom is like, she met my father at the age of, first of all, at 11, but I think he married her like at 15. So it's almost like that was her life. So she was comatose. She literally was incapacitated to do anything. And now I'm the younger child, and now I'm completely left to deal with that burden of my father's death, who died on a plane, but was an American citizen who wanted to live, who wanted to be buried in Africa. So that in itself was complicated, because
Mhm.
as an American citizen, they would have flown him here, but he wanted to be buried in Africa. So it was just, the whole thing was complicated. I was a teacher. I had no days, and I think they give you 3 days, I think, for grievance,
Bereavement three.
bereavement, right? So now I can't even take the 3 days, because it's not like I could see him because he's in another country. So it was so complicated. So to this day, and this happened in November 27th of 2017, which was my parents' 50th anniversary,
Mm.
interestingly again. And to this day, I just have not been able to just sit and just cry for my dad. It was just so
So you
overwhelming.
sound like you have cumulative grief.
For sure, absolutely. And that's why I'm
Correct.
sitting here saying, oh my gosh, that's what's up. That's what's
Yeah.
wrong. Because I've been wondering, is it that I didn't care enough about him? Was he stressing my mama? Am I
No, it's
taking it
a
out on
lot.
him? Like, all of
Yeah.
these things made, yeah, it's bringing a lot of for me it's
Aha
causing a
moment.
paradigm
Aha.
yeah,
Aha moments.
definitely a lot of aha moments, but it's more of a paradigm shift for me. My perspective is totally switched about, and maybe I need to see you, Dr. Andy, but thank you.
You, no, so you definitely, it sounds from what you're saying, you haven't dealt with it. And
No.
so you might lash out. And where's that anger coming from? Well, I'm still healing. I haven't healed yet. I haven't cried for my dad. There's a lot of stuff that would be going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that you actually see, I'm seriously get a grief counselor, because trust me, you start working on your grief, things just start happening. Positive things start happening. So right now you might be limiting yourselves with a bunch of stuff that you could be doing, but you're not doing it because internally you're not sharing about how you feel, right? You haven't shared it. The tears are right there waiting to burst, but you just being tough or whatever you want to call it, right? So you need to find that time. So there's a technique that I use called scheduling your grief, and
Hmm.
that can help you um, without therapy. I still would recommend a therapist, but scheduling your grief is this: between 12 and 2 on Wednesdays, I'm going to go into this room and cry my eyes out and do all this stuff. And at 2 o'clock, it's done. Wham! We close that door until the next time we decide to do it again. That works. That works without therapy. But again, from what you're saying, you need therapy. But in the meantime, that's what you can do. Schedule your griefs, schedule your time to cry and do all the things that goes with grieving, and you will find yourself coming out of those moments like, ooh, because those tears start flowing. You stop those tears, you go back next week, back in, and all of a sudden you start feeling better. The anger that you have, that you were wondering, where is this anger coming from? It's from there. So it starts
Right.
to recede, and all of a sudden you start feeling better and better. But I still would recommend that you see a therapist.
Thank you.
So I am open. Phyllis, you could post my number if
Yeah, I'll
anybody
give it
wants.
to her. Philly and
Well,
Andy.
not just affiliate to your
Yeah.
audience,
To
Yeah.
your
I'll
audience,
put it. I'll
yes.
put it
But
on.
thank you for that, Dr.
Yeah.
Andy. Thank you so much for
right?
that advice.
I have a plug to make. On Tuesday, October the 10th, which is National Homeless Day,
Yes.
we're having our second annual Youth Fest. Let me tell you what this is all about. Over 7,000 kids in Broward County School have reported being homeless. Either they're living in a car, in a shelter, sleeping by a family member, or couch surfing. So this event was held last year, and we just tried to create an awareness of that plight, and we also provide them with resources. So we have a Christian rap singer would come out. We have some of the politicians this year. Um, what's it? Congresswoman McCormick. She's going to be showing up to speak. We have games. We have um, resources. They have a lot of fun. We have food, and it's from 8 to 2, and it's going to be at Sunfire High School on Broward on Oakland Park Boulevard. Tuesday, October the 10th, National um, Homeless Day. We're going to have some proclamations from the governor, from the congresswoman, and from the county. We're asking people to come out. It's a free event. And I have one of my sponsors. He ordered 50 raincoats, but these are not regular raincoats. These are raincoats that can turn into tents. So
Right.
let's say you're out there and it's raining, you can stop and it turns into a tent, and you can be safe from the inclement weather. So we're giving that out to the people who's going to be, the kids who are going to be there. Um, and our homeless event is no longer where we do it downtown Broward. They just recently passed a law. So we're going to be doing it at a church in Pompano. We're partnering with a church to do the homeless event. So we're not doing it this weekend, which would have normally been the last Saturday of every month. We're still doing it the last Saturday of every month, but at a different location, and I'll keep you posted. So I
Okay.
want your audience to be aware. We're still looking for donations. We're looking for tables. We're still looking for, you know, we didn't get any funding. We did it
Right.
last year with no funding. We're doing it again with no funding. But if anybody wants to donate or even show up and help, You can give them my information. We really are pleading to the public. This is around the Carnival weekend, so
Right.
you know it's gonna
What
Carnival is
date? What date again?
Thursday, October the 10th. That's National Homeless Day. So we're doing this stuff with the kids in the morning, and the afternoon we're going to Pompano, and we're gonna feed the homeless. Do the feed the homeless in Pompano. So we're looking for any type of financial support, any type of support. If people have tables to donate, that type of stuff. Um, we really get we're really looking for support. Again, no finances again, but God is in control. It's His project, but so we know it's going to happen. But we also know it's going to be overshadowed with Carnival, But we still have a captive audience. The school system is supporting us on this effort. So I just wanted for you to share that to your audience.
Okay, great. I mean, we got some really, really good information today. Again, anyone, I posted Dr. Andy's phone number in the chat. If you need assistance, give him a call. He's the expert. He can guide you in whatever direction that you need to go. If you need extra help, he's here for any one of you guys. Reach out to him and he could guide you in whatever way. Sometimes as he gave these 16, suggestions here about grief. Sometimes we may have something bothering us and we don't know really how to deal with it. Sometimes we need to open up to that person that we could trust, that we could talk to, because not everybody we can talk to, and we bottle up a lot inside. As Philia said, she has a lot going on from since 2017, I think she said, from when her father passed away. And still, we in 2024, and she still have not released that outpouring of tears, because she has to be the strong one in the family. And I know sometimes we think we're strong, but we strong people too need somebody.
Of
And
course.
we need to just trust the process and trust the professionals to give us that strength that we need. So anybody out there that is listening and you need help, today's topic was about grief, loss, and healing. And Andy gave us 16 examples here of grief, but he really touched on one, which is cumulative grief.
No, complicated
I'm
grief.
sorry, complicated grief, which is again, complicated, unresolved issues that we have. So that is one. We are going to do a part two on it whenever Andy has time to come and chat with us, because I know he's very busy. And we're going to continue this topic because I think a lot of people really needs help out there. And when we know better, we do better, right, doctor?
Yeah, let me add one thing. So one, if they know somebody who needs it, they can refer them to me. And also, I had another point. And don't say, well, I'm in Trinidad. How could I? Any part of the world you are, we have Zoom.
Right.
So I send you the link, and we show up and we talk. Right?
Good.
That's how it works. So don't
Good.
limit yourself. Well, I'm in Trinidad. Oh, I'm going to get him. No. Any part of the world that you know somebody who is grieving, that you think may need benefit from my help, or just need help in general, because my initial consultation is at no cost. The
Hmm.
initial
Guys, grab it. I mean, we
right. It's
bringing
like
it to you
it's like 30
guys.
minutes. It's like a 30 minutes initial consultation, and then if you want more, well, then we're gonna talk about payment
Oh,
and all that different stuff.
very good. 30 minutes is a lot you could say in 30 minutes.
All right. I think I'll be expecting a call from Philia though. See.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Philia will be calling you.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Dr. Andy. Again, guys, thanks once again. Guys, keep just remember our cancer walk is on the 5th of October. It's in Queens. It's $20 per t-shirt. Light breakfast will be served. This is my first cancer walk. Come out and support the cause. Just remember too, we celebrating Hispanic month, which is in September here. So we want to shout out all our Espanol, Dominicans, anybody,
Afro Latinas, Afro
everybody.
Latinx.
Shout out to you guys. We recognize you. And
I
Yes.
fall into that category, right? Because my
Mhm.
great my great grandfather is from Venezuela. That's why I got the last name Ansola.
My
You
So
see?
sister too.
I'm Hispanic too.
All
My
right,
grandmother
all of
too.
you
And
Afro
Garcia.
Latinas, salud.
Yes.
You are Garcia, Ansola. ¿Cómo está, my people?
All right, guys. So have a
All
blessed
right.
and safe week. Keep walking in love. Do a kind deed out there. Be safe. Each one, teach one. Love any house.
Yes, love
Hope
in the
this
house. Thank
topic
you
reached
again,
someone
doctor.
tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andy. Thank
I'll
you,
be
Philly.
I'll be
All right.
calling you. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, me too.
I'm gonna look. Oh, Philly. Oh, I ain't taking this call.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
God bless.
Angeline.
All
Thank
righty.
you,
Bye.
Okay,
guys.
bye bye.
Thanks, everybody, for locking in.
All right,
Philly,
bye.
that was a great topic
It
as
was
usual.
excellent. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Andy always come and give us some great
He's
topics.
awesome, and I didn't even know he was a thenologist. That's awesome. Like, yeah, I that is because I've been talking recently. Like, oh, I need to go to therapy. I had a therapist years ago, and I'm just like, I just have. There's so many other things, and I'm uncovering new things in my life, but I still
Right,
feel like the old things are still pulling me back a bit, and
right.
this could be one of them. So I'm
Good.
definitely gonna give him a call. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
I'm
for
gonna
that.
send you the number as we
Please.
here.
Yeah, you
All
can
right.
text you can text it to me and I'll text him and find out when is a good time for me to give him a buzz.
All right.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you,
Okay,
boo.
guys. Good
Love
night.
you. Bye.
Love you guys.
All right. Bye everybody.
Bye bye.